Hey guys, it's the Worship Culture team, and today we're talking about increasing worship engagement. Stick around. Hey everyone, this is Jeremiah, and today we're talking about increasing worship engagement in your church. And so I know this is a big thing for a lot of us. Of course, we want more people to engage. And so there are just some things we need to talk about, some questions we need to answer. So I hope you'll stick around in this conversation. So first, I think we want to talk about, or we should talk about, reasons why people don't engage. So this situation happens to all of us, right? You're leading songs in your church, and you're just like, why isn't this working? We've all had that. We all probably had that this past Sunday, right? Or maybe that was today for you. Why isn't this working? And what can I do differently? So let's talk about why are some of the reasons, or what are some of the reasons why people don't engage? So the first reason I can think of is maybe they just aren't there yet, right? We'll just talk about it as a spiritual development thing. Maybe they're new to the whole Jesus thing. Maybe they're just not in the right headspace yet. Maybe they're exhausted. I'm not a morning person, so it takes a lot of morning warm-up for me to even be personable by 11 a.m. when our service is. So if you're not a morning person, you're probably not going to show up on a morning service. And some of you guys I know probably have like 8 and 8:30 services. Like if I show up to that, I'm going to be a zombie. So maybe you're just not in the right headspace yet. You're not awake yet. Maybe your folks showed up and some big stuff happened in their life, right? They've got some major hurts or relationship issues, or they just argued with their spouse in the car on the way to church, or their kids in the hospital, or, there are just so many external things that factor into engagement. So that could be one reason. The second reason, this is a pretty big one, is maybe these people just aren't physically responsive. I'm not a hand raiser. I started playing in worship teams when I was 10. My dad planted a church. And so from that point on, I've almost always had an instrument in my hands during worship. I don't know what to do with my hands. I'll just be really honest. Like, I'm not a hand raiser. I'm a hands and pocketser. And so I engage with worship completely differently than even I was looking for about 10 years ago when I started kind of shifting in this. And I'll talk about that more in a little bit. But you might not just have physically responsive people, and that's okay. It's all of us worship differently. All of us express things differently. Some of us are hand raisers. Some of us are like me and it's hands in pockets. For me, if I'm like in really deep in it, if I am no longer standing, so I'm sitting down, my hands are in my lap, my eyes are closed, and I'm not moving. That's when I'm in the deep end of the pool. I'm not a hand raiser. I'm not a lay on the ground person. I'm not a kneeler. I am the guy that would look the least engaged when I'm the most engaged. So maybe you need to just stop projecting your physical expressions on other people. So you might just have that in your church. Again, there's no one way to worship, and there's no one way that's better than the other. So maybe you just don't have physically responsive people, and you need to learn that. Maybe these folks don't know the songs yet. Maybe you haven't used a system to introduce your songs so that people can grab a hold of them. Maybe they don't believe in you. Maybe they don't believe in the worship time. I've been in churches where a lot of folks just think the music time is pregame warm-up for the message, right? And in some ways it is, and then in every other way it's not, right? It can be warm-up for it just because it happens before, but this is just the same in importance as hearing a message. So maybe we just haven't pastored people yet. So the big questions we need to think about, I think, heading into this question of how do I get my people more engaged, is first, does my church just have a discipleship gap? Have we talked about worship in recent months, recent years in a sermon series? If we're not teaching anything, how are we just expecting people to show up and boom, they know how to worship, right? So if we haven't had a sermon series in a couple years about worship, we're due for one. So I know most of us aren't choosing sermon series, but you know your pastor, and you can be able to come to him and him or her, I'm sorry, but you can go to your pastor, and instead of saying, hey, we have a gap, I know how to fix it, ask the question, when's the last time we had a series on worship? And just listen. It could be that they've never taught on worship, and they're just like, oh yeah, we need to start talking about that. So that might be the gap. Also, like, if there's not a small group culture thriving in your church, worship involvement usually isn't going to be up. As folks disciple and get closer to each other, worship expressiveness happens and engagement happens. So does your church just have a discipleship gap? The second question would be, are you expecting certain physical responses from your people? I sure hope the answer is no. It wasn't no for me a handful of years ago. I definitely expected from people something that I wasn't even willing to give. Again, I'm not a hands raiser, but it's really, really easy to be on stage and you look out and you see all these hands raised, and now you know that the song has worked. But it's a lot harder to know how it works when folks aren't raising their hands. But if we're truly going to lead our people, we need to stop holding these unrealistic expectations over their heads. So, are you holding these expectations over people? I would challenge you to get rid of that. God moves in a whole lot of ways. I shared even just my story, right? You're probably like that, and you might have been like me, where you are not expressive, but you expected other people to be expressive. So, right, do you see the dissonance there? So I'd get rid of that. Third, are you just singing too many songs? Folks can't learn, normal non-musician types can't learn 40, 50, 60 songs and show up and you pull out this song that you haven't done in 6 months and they're just like, oh yeah, that's my jam, I'm in. Sometimes that happens, right? But not all the time. And we just need to stop treating people like they're in the same club as us and love the same stuff as we do. So are you doing too many songs? Are your new songs being done too irregularly? I've been in churches where we introduce a new song on Easter and we never do it again. So now what that creates in people is they hear a new song and immediately go, I might never hear this again, so I'm not really going to invest in it. That's what we're doing with people when we don't do songs again. Also, if you do a song once and nobody knows it, and you do it the second week and still nobody knows it, and you give up, you haven't given anybody enough time to grab a hold of things. The average churchgoer goes once every 3 weeks now. That's the average churchgoer who says, this is my church, I'm a member here, I'm invested here, comes once every 3 weeks. So the average churchgoer at your church isn't going to hear that song at all. So are we doing too many songs, and have we done them too irregularly? Do we have a system for getting people acquainted with our new songs? And then lastly, this is the biggest thing, because I think this can change everything for us, and it changed everything for me about 10 years ago. But here's the question. Are you leading worship for you? Or do you see yourself as someone whose job it is to help other people worship? I think if we can get the answer to this question right, everything else is going to fall into place. We are not here to just sound good. We're not here to put on a show. If you are leading worship in your church, it is your job to help people worship. And so do whatever you can to help people worship. Don't tell people you have to be like me. You go to them and say, how can I help, right? And so that's why we learn all these practical tools of introducing new songs and creating cultures and being intentional with songs that we choose, is because the core of our job in our church is to help people worship. We create atmospheres, we create environments, we create experiences for people to interact with Jesus because Jesus does the work. We don't. We are just the host for that Sunday morning. We are the host, and it's our job to just show up and get out of the way because Jesus does the work. So, if you feel that your job is to help your church worship, it changes everything. So I would challenge you to write that question down, put it up on your computer screen, put it up somewhere where you can see it. Our job is to help people worship. And that can change everything for you, your ministry, for your church. All right, so let's recap again. So reasons why people don't engage. Maybe they're just not there yet. Stuff happened in their life. Maybe they just aren't physically expressive people, and that's totally okay. Maybe they don't know the songs yet, and we need to do a better job of introducing songs and creating effective song catalogs. Maybe they just don't believe in the worship music time as a valuable experience. So big questions for us. Does our church have that discipleship gap to cover? Do we need to teach on worship? Do we need to create better experiences? Do we need to get people more involved in small groups? Are we expecting physical engagement from people, and why? And how can we get rid of that expectation so that we can meet people where they are? Are we singing too many songs, and have we not implemented a good system to introduce new songs so that people can learn them? And then lastly, are we leading worship for our benefit, or are we existing to help people worship? Okay, so I hope that helps you. I hope it gives you something to work out of, something practical that can help you. We would love to partner with you, so make sure to like and comment and subscribe. Let us know how else you need help. We exist to help you guys as you work to grow and create healthier teams. So we love for you to be a part of this conversation. We want this to be two-way. So yeah, make sure to comment. Let us know how we can help. And I hope you have an awesome week. I hope this helps your Sunday be even better. And we'll see you next time.